Welcome back to Hustle and Flow. I am your host, Heather Hubbard, and we are on episode 202. And today I am going to share with you my favorite marketing tool that works in any industry if you are wanting to meet people that you don't know how to get in front of, that maybe you've never met before, you don't know how to get an introduction. Maybe you are wanting to break into a new industry or a new city. Maybe you want to be seen as a sought-after expert or thought leader in a certain area, or you just want to get in front of people that you know but don't know you. We're going to cover it all today, including some case studies and how you can start doing this on your own starting today or tomorrow. So let's get started. Hi, I'm Heather Hubbard. I went from being a lawyer and partner at one of the largest firms in America to becoming an online personality and successful entrepreneur. I know what it takes to rise to the top. I also know all too well the toll it can take on your health and personal life. So how do you shine bright without burning out? How do you chase joy while achieving success? You're listening to the Hustle and Flow podcast. All right, so we are talking about connection calls and influencer dinners. Now, what exactly is a connection call or an influencer dinner? Let's start with the dinners first, because that's how I actually learned of this concept. And then over time, I have tried out a lot of different variations, including connection calls. So an influencer dinner is when you are the host and you gather together other influencers. Now, this might be an Instagram influencer or social media influencer, lifestyle influencer, if that's your industry or business. If it's not, and I suspect for many of you it's not, this can be any kind of influencer in your industry. That might be a political influencer. It might be a business influencer. There are so many different kinds of influencers. Influencers have been around well before, the new buzzword came around related to social media. So it's anyone who has influence, who has a big network, who knows a lot of people, and who can make things happen. That is an influencer. And so the concept is that you are hosting these dinners, these events, where you are inviting people of importance to gather together. And then you are making those connections, introductions. We're going to get into it in a little bit more detail. You might have a particular topic to discuss, or it may just be a straight up networking gathering, because influencers didn't get to where they are without having a strong network. And so they are always looking for newer connections and to deepen connections they might already have. Like I said, we will go through all of the details on how you actually pull this off a little bit later. It has evolved, though, in my own mind as I have worked with these variations. And this year, I've actually been playing with the concept of connection calls. So it is the same thing. It's just not over dinner, because so many of the people that I know and the way that my business works, they are not only all across the United States, they're also in Canada and Portugal and the UK and lots of other places. So how do you bring those people together? Well, one of the ways that I have enjoyed as a participant and as a host, I did them a while back, but like I said, I've just gotten back into doing them regularly this year. It's a similar opportunity where you can either curate or invite and let, people raise their hands and see kind of how it falls into place. So you're not necessarily trying to control it, where you let people come together to meet each other. And it can be to share common goals. It can be to get advice. It can be simply to meet others in similar industries. I've also found that the world is really small. We think it's not, but if you are in business, it's a small world. If you are a professional, it's a small world. If you're a consultant, it's a small world. And so there's the concept, of course, of 6 degrees of separation. And oftentimes you don't even have to go that far. So you may get on the phone, get on a Zoom call with others that don't necessarily make sense as an immediate connection, but you never know who they are connected with, where they can then make that introduction based on the services you're providing, the services you're needing, or simply an issue that has come up for you where you could use some resources, guidance, advice. So that's what it is all about. Let's start, though, with how I learned about this concept, because I want to give credit where credit is due. Now, I'm a bit of a curator. I'm always collecting information and ideas. I don't set out to do it. It's not intentional. It just happens. It's part of my personality. I'm a curator. I'm a collector of information and ideas and people and all the things. So I don't know how I first came upon this book or first learned of Jayson, but it happened probably sometime in 2016 or 2017. So Jayson Gaignard is a true connector, and he hosts invite-only, they're called Mastermind Talks. I don't know why they're called talks unless it's like a riff on TED Talks. But it's really a lot of masterminding that happens in these, what used to be just one-off events, but now has turned into a community. And a lot of it's related to the online business world, as well as some other things. But he wrote a book called Mastermind Dinners. Now, it really could be an ebook. It's so short. I think it's like 100 pages. And it's big font. So you can read, I swear I read it in probably 30 minutes or an hour. I don't know. But it's a super, super fast read. And you could read it if you want to. I don't think you have to, but if you want to, I'll include the link in the show notes. But Jayson wrote this book about the concept of planning these dinners. In fact, I think that's actually how it started. I think it's been so long since I've read the book. I think it actually started as dinners, and then that grew and turned into his mastermind talks. So it's the concept of simply bringing together people that you want to meet, that you think could benefit from meeting each other, and you break bread. You know, you drink wine, you have a good time, and you form relationships. And it's that simple. It's that simple. But a lot of times, especially like when I think back with my background, the way that we would do dinners, if we were hosting something at the law firm or, you know, even just as an individual lawyer, but generally you would team up with people. You might invite people in, but they tend to be clients or prospective clients, and it's just them. You might have networking events or other events where people are just coming in and mixing and mingling, but I did not ever experience or witness very curated dinners and events where you are specifically telling the people you are coming to meet other people in your industry or however you want your angle to be, and we would love to invite you to come. And then there was a very structured conversation around that. So it was new to me. The concept was new to me. And I thought, how brilliant. But it wasn't until I saw Chris Winfield and Selena Sue hosting influencer dinners in a bit of a different way that I realized just how powerful they could be. Now, if you're not familiar with Chris and Selena, they are both publicists or in the publicity industry in New York. And I believe at the time they were true publicists. They both kind of do different things now. This was back in 2017. But they were hosting monthly influencer dinners where they invited, so half of the invites went to those in the media. So they might be producers or journalists, writers, editors. And then the other half of the dinner invites went to those who were influencers and experts and business owners who wanted to be in the media. Because the media, as you know, is 24/7. They're constantly needing new content, great experts where they can put this forward, whether it is on TV or in a magazine, online, and they're constantly looking for this content. And so the business owners, the influencers, they want to be featured in the media. So it was this beautiful connection and introduction to one another. Now, Chris and Selena, they went about it in a really, really smart way. So not only did they bring together two sets of people who wanted to meet each other, they marketed it, they highlighted it very, very well. So they would have a professional photographer at the dinner, and they always got the best shots. Now, I don't know if they actually paid for those dinners or not, or if everyone who attended paid. It doesn't really matter. I just know some of you might have questions around that, and I do not know the answer. But they would have the photos, and then when the photos got back, they would put all of them out there. They looked amazing. And then they would tag every single person that they invited who attended. And they didn't just tag it, right? Like in the description, they would say, here's this person, like here is their credentials and like what they do. So it would show, this person was from, I'm making stuff up, Good Morning America or the Oprah magazine or a Forbes contributor. And then they would also identify the business owners, and they would say what their business was and what they did. So every single person who attended the dinner, not only did they get to meet each other and have those connections, but they were then highlighted on Facebook as well. And so every single one of their friends, because of course this is kind of how Facebook worked at the time, and they were doing it on their personal pages, every single one of their friends could see that they had been to this dinner. And so they were already connected with the very people they would want at the next dinner. So you had media who was like, how do I get invited to this dinner? This looks amazing. And then you had business owners and influencers who were like, how do I get invited to this dinner? And they were monthly dinners. They were, like I said, promoting that they were holding these monthly dinners. And so it created buzz and it created excitement around people wanting to attend. So you would see in the comments from media as well as business owners and influencers saying, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. I would love to attend one in the future. And whether they got the invite or not was really up to Chris and Selena. But you had people raising their hands saying, I want to be at this dinner without them even having to really go and try to recruit people to show up, because it was kind of a see and be seen thing, right? It felt exclusive and exciting. I remember when I saw them doing this, I was like, how do I get at one of these dinners? And I don't know if they came up with this idea based on knowing Jayson or having read his book, or if they kind of came up with it on their own, but it really was a smart way to go about making those connections so that people saw them as connectors, and then marketing it so that everyone else in social media saw them as connectors, and they became well known as these great publicists as well. So they were also elevating their own names. Now, like I said, they each have, they do totally different things now. So those influencer dinners don't exist anymore, but they really were epic. And the two of them, when they partnered on that, really just knocked it out of the park. And like I said, that's what showed me what was possible with these dinners. Okay, so let's move to the third case study, which is with a former client of mine. She's also a friend. She was in my mastermind, my annual mastermind, which, by the way, is coming back. You're hearing it first. So she was in my mastermind for 2 years. And one of the things that she was doing at the time, she's a lawyer, by the way. She's been on the podcast before, and we talked a little bit about this. So I'll link that in the show notes as well. But Autumn Witt Boyd, she had started working with, she knew she was going to do copyrights, trademarks, intellectual property, because that was her background when she started her company. But she realized pretty quickly, early on, that her favorite clients that she was working with, they were content creators. They were in online business. They were speaking. They were doing online coaching. And she said, how do I work with more of these people? So we were friends, and she knew that I was in the online business space creating something similar. And so, we would chat about this all the time, and she was looking for ins, and she was going to some conferences and participating in some groups, and she was definitely in Facebook groups at the time and was really interested in growing that market. But a lot of the people that she was attracting didn't really have the money to hire her. They were newbies, and they didn't even need legal work necessarily. And so she wanted some bigger accounts and really wanted to work with some of the people that were at the top of the game. And so she kept working on that and trying to get in front of them, and just didn't feel like she was making a lot of progress. And so when I'm working with people, I always try to come up with strategies that will work for their personality as well as their industry. And I had actually proposed to a few different clients over the years to do these influencer dinners if I thought that it was a good fit for them. And y'all, they just didn't execute, right? Like they just, for whatever reason, either didn't feel like a good fit, or maybe they were nervous about it. But I proposed it to Autumn, and she was 100% scared, but she did it. She went through with it. So we came up with when she was going to be in San Diego, although she might have created a reason why she was in San Diego. She was going to create this because so many of the influencers in the online space were in San Diego at the time. And so we came up with the list of people that she knew that she wanted to attend. And then we combined resources. I knew people that were in the area in San Diego. And then she had, again, other friends and contacts that were in the online space where she was reaching out to them to say, who do you know who is in San Diego? And so we came up with this list. Now, if you are in or familiar with the online business industry at all, these names are going to mean something to you. The others, when you're listening, you're going to be like, I don't know who these people are. Am I supposed to be impressed? And that's why, right? But every industry has these like titans. Okay. So she wanted to invite Amy Porterfield. Pat Flynn was there. So I was like, well, we can invite Pat. And again, came up with more people. And so I came up with three or four people. I was like, okay, I have contacts with these people. I will reach out and make introductions and say that you're hosting this influencer dinner to connect other influencers, right? Free dinner, nice restaurant, all the things. And so I made connections. Again, she had other friends making connections, and we just kept getting super strategic in how do we get to Amy Porterfield? And this story has been told. So again, it's not like I'm sharing something that she wouldn't want to be shared. And so we both had ends on that. And so we just kept going different angles to get that invite out to her. And she accepted. She said yes, as well as other really big names. And so they show up to the dinner. And keep in mind, Autumn, to my knowledge, did not know any of these people at the time. Like she had never had a conversation. They weren't friends. They weren't acquaintances. But as we would get key people in, we would invite more, and we'd be able to say, oh, this person is coming. And she had a great turnout, and we had structured like, what was this dinner going to look like? And I'm going to share a little bit of this as we move on in the episode. But it was a very clear agenda, so people knew what they were walking into. And so I think with that particular dinner, it was to share a little bit more about, like, as you were going around the table, who you are, what you do, and is there something where you could use support right now? It could be a resource, a connection, advice, anything like that. Just for other people to brainstorm and be like, oh, I know someone who can help you with this, or I've got a connection on this, or have you tried this, right? So she was facilitating super helpful conversations. And she didn't have much of a pitch at all, right? Like, she's just setting up this dinner to get to meet people. And they took a photo. I was like, make sure you get a photo so you can put it on, social media, and you can tag everyone so that then people can be like, who is this Autumn girl, right? Like, it immediately sets up credibility that you can gather those kinds of people in a room. And because it was such a lovely evening, the people who attended were like commenting, saying, thank you so much. And as they were, I think, doing the photos and everything, Amy naturally said, what is it that you do? What would you like help with? Or like, who's your ideal client? And Autumn was able to say, well, to be honest, Amy, people exactly like you. And they now work together. They have both grown tremendously over the years. And from that dinner, and obviously Autumn has put in so much hard work, and she did it. Again, she executed. She made those phone calls. She asked those favors. She prepared herself. She paid the money to get to San Diego. She lives in Chattanooga. She paid for the dinner. She worked through her nerves, and she hosted this dinner, and that has paid dividends. She still hosts these dinners, and it has led to, she is the go-to attorney for online businesses that are 8 figures and above. And like I said, she has just built this, like, she is known as the lawyer who represents the biggest names in the industry. And she was able to build that and create that by being strategic, by hosting that dinner, working through her fears, and then continuing to do that. And because she obviously provides great work, her services are amazing, then people want to refer their friends, right? Like, this person knows what they're doing. They're great at what they do. They understand she understands our business. Her team understands the business. And so she gets more referrals that way. It was such a delight to watch all of this come about. And I have been to some of her dinners since then. So it's a really, really fun thing to do. And it fits very well with her personality. So I encourage you to think about, is this a marketing tool that you might want to use? I have shared it with so many different people over the years in different ways on how it might work for them. Sometimes it's you want to meet someone. Sometimes it's you want to gain more credibility. It could just be, though, that you work with a lot of clients or people. You have an industry where you know that people could benefit from knowing each other. And just you making that connection means that they're also going to think of you because they appreciate what you provide to them. So as I mentioned earlier, this year I have been doing connection calls because so many of the people that I know are all over the country and in other countries. And so I have been using Zoom monthly. I've been hosting like 1 to 2 a month since, oh my goodness, April or May. And I have not been specifically curating them in the sense of saying, oh, these 4 people should meet or these 8 people should meet. I have participated in these where they're super curated, and those are great and helpful. If you can do that, it takes a lot more work to pull that off because people may not show up and really making sure you got the right people there. So what I did, especially since I was coming back, I simply reached out to so many of the people in my network and said, like podcast guests or people who had spoken for me at different events or just, a lot of my colleagues and peers, and said, hey, we're doing this. We're going to have these connection calls. They're going to be limited so that we can get to know each other. And we are going to share what we're doing and the thing we're most excited about, as well as anything we could use support on. So I told people in advance, here's what the agenda is. Here's what we're talking about. And so many people have signed up. They showed up. I used Calendly to just like let people pick their spots. And then a tip I learned from Heather Chauvin, I had never actually seen this done before, but I attended one of her connection calls in January that she hosted. And it was an Excel sheet where each person got to put in their contact information as well as what was shared so that you could go back and follow up. And I'll be honest, a lot of these people, when I say these people, I mean like everybody. A lot of times when people show up to these things, if it doesn't happen in real time, it doesn't have to happen afterwards. And very rarely in my experience will people reach out after the fact, but I always want to stand out. So if I attend someone else's dinner or connection call, I will look through that list and I will make sure that I am reaching out to provide support for each and every one of them as to what they ask for, if I can help, or if I can think of someone I can introduce them to. And so that is also a way to really stand out and shine, is when you are at an event like this and you hear someone say that they could use a resource. Think about it, set aside time to come up with the resource and then provide it to them. It just goes so far, I think, in building long-term relationships for people to know that they can count on you, rely on you, and trust you to be there for them. So, but it's also a good reason why, if you're ever in the moment, like kind of trying to get people, I'm trying to think of who it was. Someone I know always is like, hey, can I get this introduction or whatever? And they'll be like, yeah, sure, reach out. And they'll be like, oh, can we just do it right now? Just to get people to do it, because it's not like people don't want to do it. Well, sometimes they might not really want to do it, but they forget. We have such busy lives. And so when you're in person with someone or you're on Zoom with someone, getting them to do things in the moment is great. So I did that Excel sheet, Google sheet, and allowed all of the connection calls to put in their information so that they could also continue to connect. So that is just one tool that you might want to use. Like I said, it works in any industry because there are always people that you could meet or connect or really want to stand out with in your industry. Great way to go about that. If you would like to work with me, 2 options. So the very next growth accelerator, which is kind of like a small group incubator where we really work through your offer, your marketing strategy, your sales strategy, your brand, your messaging to really make sure that you stand out and you're super clear. That is about to start again in the fall. So go check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes, but it's heatherjoyhubbard.com/growth accelerator. And the annual Mastermind is also back. So it's limited to only 12 people. And you need to be a professional turned entrepreneur to be in that program. But it is going to be you and I working together for a year in many different ways, aspects, programs. But it's how I can do a deep dive in your business and get you a lot of really specific strategic advice and coach and support you through the process of doing those scary things like hosting influencer dinners, if that is a good marketing and sales strategy for you. And it may not be, depending on your personality and the personality of your ideal clients. So if you're interested in the annual Mastermind, you just reach out to me. So you can do that on LinkedIn, you can do that on Instagram, you can do that on my Facebook page. All of those links are in the show notes. The quickest response will be if you go to Instagram and just slide in my DMs and ask me about it. Okay, I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you did too. I hope you got some ideas, because some of you out here could really benefit from this and blow up your business. So thank you for joining me, and I'll be back next week, in fact, with 2 amazing publicists who can share more about how you might actually want to leverage publicity in your business. And at the very end, per usual, that is Karma Kitten. Thanks. Have a great week. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, give the episode a like and leave a comment below so we can keep the conversation going. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a future episode or announcement. Listening on Apple, Spotify, or another podcast app?
You can watch the video and join in the after-show conversation by visiting hustleandflowpodcast.com.